You grow up in Ridgefield, Connecticut. Small town, the kind where every house has a lawn and every lawn has a secret. Your father is an actuary, calculates risk for an insurance company, drives a Volvo, eats the same lunch every day. Turkey on wheat, no mustard. Your mother teaches piano to neighborhood children in the living room. You hear scales through your bedroom floor every afternoon from age 4 to age 17. C major, G major. The same mistakes from different kids. The same corrections from your mother. Patient. Always patient with them, not with you. With you, she's tired. You're quiet and she doesn't know what to do with quiet. Your father doesn't notice. He's not cruel. He's just solving equations in a room you don't have access to. You learn early that being invisible in your own house is a skill, not a tragedy. It only becomes a tragedy later. You don't hurt animals. You don't start fires. You don't wet the bed. The 3 signs they always list in the documentaries, you have none of them. What you have is a distance, a gap between you and the feeling other people seem to have when they look at each other. Your classmates cry at movies. You watch them cry and you study the mechanics of it, the trembling lip, the breath catch. You can reproduce it perfectly. You do, once in 7th grade when your dog dies. You cry at the kitchen table and your mother holds you and says it's okay, and you feel her arms around you and you feel nothing, and the nothing is so loud it's almost a sound. You're smart. Not dangerously smart. Quietly smart. You get A's without studying. You read books about psychology the way other kids read comics. Not because you're fascinated by the mind, because you're looking for yourself in the pages. A name for the gap. You find words, affect, empathy, attachment. You learn that these things exist on a spectrum and you are on the far end of it, in a territory that doesn't get a lot of visitors. You don't tell anyone. There's nothing to tell. You're not suffering. You're just watching from inside a window that doesn't open. College is where you learn to perform, not theater. Personhood, you study people the way an engineer studies a bridge. Load-bearing behaviors, which smile means genuine pleasure, which laugh means social obligation. You build a version of yourself that works. Friendly, approachable, slightly funny, a little self-deprecating. People like you. Not deeply, but enough. You date a girl named Sarah for 8 months. She says you're a good listener. You are. Listening is data collection. She breaks up with you because she says you feel far away even when you're sitting next to her. She's the most perceptive person you've ever met. You never tell her that. You move to Portland after college, get a job at a tech company, data analysis. The irony isn't lost on you. You rent an apartment, buy furniture from IKEA, assemble it on a Saturday while listening to a podcast about serial killers. The host talks about the BTK killer, Dennis Rader, church president, Cub Scout leader, family man, killed 10 people over 17 years. The host says the scariest thing about Rader was how normal he was. You turn off the podcast, not because it disturbs you, because the word normal lands differently when you're holding an Allen wrench and wondering why you feel more connection to the man in the podcast than to anyone you've ever shared a meal with. The first time happens when you're 26. You don't plan it. That's a lie every documentary tells, that there's a moment of decision, a dark room, a manifesto, a switch that flips. There's no switch. There's a gradient, a slow erosion of the barrier between thinking about something and doing it. Like a riverbank that loses an inch of soil every year until one day the water goes where it wasn't supposed to. A man in a bar, downtown Portland, Tuesday night. He's drunk, aggressive, bumps into you, spills your drink, calls you a name. You don't react. He leaves at midnight. You follow him, not with a plan, with a curiosity that has weight. At Chiu, he walks 6 blocks to a parking garage. 3rd level, empty. He's fumbling with his keys. You're 40 feet behind him, then 20, then 10. The distance closes the way a thought becomes a sentence. Naturally, grammatically, he doesn't hear you. You hit him once with a tire iron you picked up from the floor of the garage. He drops. The sound is duller than you expected. Not like the movies, more like a book falling off a shelf. He's breathing. You hit him again. He stops. You stand over him for about 90 seconds. Your heart rate is 80. You checked. Normal resting range. You feel something. Not guilt, not excitement. Completion. Like a chord that's been missing its root note for 26 years finally resolves. You drive home, shower, eat a bowl of cereal, sleep 7 hours. In the morning, you check the news. Nothing. You check again at lunch. A small item in the local section. Man found dead in parking garage. Blunt force trauma. No suspects. No witnesses. No cameras on that level. You read it once. Close the browser. Go back to your data sets. The gap between your life and your act is so wide that no one will ever think to look across it. 3 months pass. You function. That's the word. You go to work. You eat lunch with colleagues, you attend a birthday party for a coworker named Jill and bring a card you picked out carefully. Funny but not trying too hard. People laugh. You laugh with them. The performance is seamless now. You've been rehearsing it for 26 years. But the completion you felt in the garage is fading, like a drug. The memory is sharp, but the feeling is dulling, and the dullness creates a space that wants to be filled. The second one is planned. Yay, that's the difference. The first was an accident that your whole life had been rehearsing for. The second is a choice. A woman. You select her the way you'd select a dataset. Parameters. Low risk, minimal connections. Transient. You spend 3 weeks watching. She lives alone, works nights at a warehouse, no social media presence, no regular visitors. Her apartment has a back entrance that faces an alley with no streetlight. The city hasn't replaced the bulb in months. You know this because you walked that alley 11 times. At different hours, in different clothes, counting seconds between pedestrians. The average gap is 14 minutes after midnight. You go on a Thursday, 1:20 a.m., black clothes, gloves. The back door has a deadbolt, but the window next to it has a latch that doesn't catch. You tested it Tuesday. Inside, the apartment smells like lavender and dish soap. She's in the bedroom, asleep. The light from the street cuts a line across the floor. You stand in her doorway for 2 minutes, watching her breathe. There's a photo on her nightstand. Her and another woman, both smiling. A friend, a sister, someone who will notice she's gone. You didn't account for the photo. You accounted for everything else. Entry, exit, timeline, forensic countermeasures. You didn't account for a smiling face in a $4 frame. You leave, back through the window, down the alley, home, cereal, bed. You don't sleep that night. Not because of guilt, because of the photo. It broke the abstraction. She was a data point, and then she was a person who smiled with someone who loved her, and the distance between those two things is the distance between what you are and what you could have been. You lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, and for the first time in your life, you feel something that isn't performance. It might be fear. You're not sure. You don't have a reference point. You go back to the bar where the first man bumped into you. You sit in the same seat, order the same drink. You're looking for something, a feeling, a reset. The bartender asks if you're okay. You say fine. She says you look like you're waiting for someone. You are. You're waiting for the version of yourself that walked in here 4 months ago and walked out a killer. You want to understand the exact moment the riverbank gave way. You can't find it. Because it wasn't a moment. It was 26 years of soil erosion and one Tuesday night of rain. The third one happens 2 months later. A man, 34, lives alone in a house outside the city. Rural. Nearest neighbor, half a mile. You've done the work. 3 weeks of observation. You know his schedule, his habits, his alarm code, which he enters every night at the same pace, 4721, standing in the same spot in his kitchen. You know this because you watched through the window. 7 times. He never closed the blinds. People don't close their blinds in rural areas. They believe distance is the same as safety. It isn't. You enter through the garage. Side door, unlocked. Most garages are. It's a Wednesday. 2:15 a.m. He's asleep upstairs. You move through his house the way you moved through your childhood. Quietly, invisibly, you've brought a knife. Chad, we're not from your kitchen, purchased with cash at a surplus store in a town you've never visited before and will never visit again. The handle is wrapped in tape, not for grip, for print prevention. You stand at the bottom of his stairs for 3 minutes. The house is silent except for the refrigerator. The hum is almost comforting. You go upstairs. The bedroom door is open. He's on his side, facing away. You wake him first. That's new. You need him to see you. Not your face. You're wearing a mask. Simple. Black. You need him to see that this is happening. That someone chose him. That the randomness of his death is also the precision of it. He opens his eyes. There's a moment, about 1.5 seconds, where his brain is processing sleep to wakefulness, to confusion, to recognition, to terror. You watch each stage arrive like watching a sunrise and fast forward. The terror is the part that completes the chord. You do what you came to do. The details don't matter to this story. They matter to a forensic report that will never be written because you don't leave evidence. You leave the house. Drive 4 hours to a river. Dispose of everything. Drive home. Shower. Work. You develop a rhythm. Not a schedule. A rhythm. Like breathing. The interval between acts varies. 2 months, 5 months, 3 months, 8 months. Each one different. Different location, different method, different type of person. The only constant is you. The preparation, the patience, the performance. and the completion that lasts a little shorter each time. You keep count, not on paper, in your head, the way you've always kept things: 6, 7, 9, 12. Oh, each number is a person. Each person had a photo on a nightstand somewhere. You stopped letting yourself see those details after the second one. You refined the process: enter, execute, exit. No lingering, no souvenirs, no letters to the press. The ones who get caught are the ones who need an audience. You don't need an audience. You need the court to resolve. That's all. That's everything. You meet a woman named Claire at a farmer's market on a Sunday. She sells honey, keeps bees in her backyard, talks about them like they're employees. The queen is management. The workers are labor. The drones are, well, she laughs, men. You laugh. It's not a performance laugh. It's something else. Something that doesn't come from the rehearsed version of you. She asks if you want to try the wildflower. You do. It's sweet in a way that feels unearned. She gives you her number. You call. Claire is different from Sarah. She doesn't say you feel far away. She says you feel like still water. Deep but calm. She means it as a compliment. You take it as an observation. You date for 4 months. She stays at your apartment on weekends. Leaves a toothbrush, a sweater, small territorial markers that you find yourself not minding. She falls asleep on your chest one night, and her breathing slows and her hand relaxes, and you feel her entire weight settle into you with a trust that is so complete it feels like a language you don't speak being spoken directly at you. You lie there for 2 hours. You don't sleep. You listen to her breathe, and you count the breaths, because counting is what you do. And somewhere around breath 340, you realize that this is the closest you've ever come to feeling what other people feel when they say the word love. It's not the word. It's not the feeling the movies describe. It's more like standing at the edge of a warm room and knowing you can't go in, but being able to feel the heat through the glass. Claire asks about your past on a Tuesday over Thai food. You tell her the curated version: Connecticut, college, Portland, data analysis. She asks if you've ever been in trouble. You say you got a parking ticket once. She laughs. You smile. The smile is real. The sentence before it is a wall that reaches from the floor to the ceiling, and behind it are 12 people who will never eat Thai food again. You stop. Not because of Claire, not because of guilt, because you run the numbers. 12 is a data set. While data sets have patterns, even when you vary the method, the location, the timing, there are statistical fingerprints. Purchase patterns, travel patterns, cell tower pings. You are good, but the technology is getting better, and the distance between good and caught is shrinking at a rate that your actuarial father would appreciate. You calculate the probability of detection at the current rate of activity over a 10-year horizon. It's 23%. Over 20 years, it's 41%. Those numbers are unacceptable. You stop, not out of mercy, out of math. The stopping is harder than the doing. That's what nobody tells you. The cord goes unresolved, the gap widens, the distance between you and everyone else stretches back to what it was before the parking garage, except now you know what completion feels like, and the knowing makes the absence worse. You go to work, you eat Thai food with Claire, you attend a colleague's wedding and give a toast that makes people cry. You are performing at the highest level of your career, the career of being a person. Claire moves in on a Saturday in March. She hangs a photo of the two of you on the wall. You look at it, you and her, smiling. The same kind of photo that sat on a nightstand in an apartment that smelled like lavender. You stare at it for a long time after she goes to bed. You realize that you are, to someone, the person in the photo, the one who would be left behind, the one whose smile would become evidence of a life that used to exist. You don't know what to do with that information. It sits in your chest like a stone you swallowed that's too heavy to pass. A detective calls your office on a Monday. Routine, he says. Yeah, a case in the area. Have you noticed anything unusual in your neighborhood? He asks 5 questions. You answer all 5. Calm. Helpful. Concerned citizen. He thanks you for your time. You hang up. Your heart rate is 82. 2 beats above normal. You check the news. A body was found, not one of yours. A domestic case. The detective is canvassing. It has nothing to do with you, but the phone call opens a door in your chest that you thought you'd sealed shut, and behind it is every act cataloged in perfect sequence, and you realize that the evidence isn't in a lab or a filing cabinet. The evidence is in you, walking around in a body that shops at farmers markets and gives wedding toasts and sleeps next to a woman who keeps bees. You are the crime scene, and the crime scene is living a life that looks like every other life on the block. Claire says she wants kids, a Sunday morning, coffee, sunlight on the kitchen table. She says it casually, like she's mentioning the weather. You say you'd like that. The performance is instant, automatic, but behind it, a calculation is running that you can't stop. You imagine a child, your child, a boy or a girl with your eyes and your quiet and your distance. You imagine them at 7, at 12, at 26. You imagine them standing in a doorway, watching someone breathe, feeling the gap between themselves and the world and not knowing why it's there. You imagine them inheriting the window that doesn't open. And for the first time in your life, the math produces an answer you can't live with. You tell Claire you need to go for a drive. She says, okay. You drive for 3 hours, north, past the city, past the suburbs, into the kind of country where the roads don't have names and the trees are older than the town. You pull over at a rest stop, sit on a bench. The air smells like pine and cold water. A family is at the next bench. Mother, father, 2 kids eating sandwiches. The younger one drops his juice box and cries. The father picks it up, wipes it off, hands it back. The kid stops crying. The whole interaction takes 8 seconds. It's the most ordinary thing you've ever seen. And you watch it the way you've always watched everything. From inside the window, you drive home. Claire is asleep on the couch, a book open on her chest. You stand in the doorway and look at her and you count her breaths again, and this time you don't feel the warmth through the glass. You feel the glass, just the glass. Oh, cold and clear and exactly the width of everything you've ever done. People think the monster is the act, the moment, the knife, the garage, the dark house. It's not. The monster is the ordinary, the Monday morning commute, the Thai food, the wedding toast that makes people cry, the farmer's market honey. The monster is the performance that's so complete, so practiced, so structurally flawless that the person sleeping on your chest will never feel the glass between your skin and hers. That's the horror, not what happens in the dark. What passes for normal in the light? There's no redemption in this story, no arrest, no confession, no dramatic standoff. Aren't you just an apartment with photos on the wall and a woman who wants children and a man who stands in doorways counting breaths and a number in his head that will never get smaller and a rest stop in the country where a father handed his son a juice box and the whole world worked the way it was supposed to for 8 seconds and you watched it? The way you've always watched everything. From the other side of the glass, somewhere right now, a quiet kid in a nice house is lying in bed, hearing piano scales through the floor, studying the mechanics of a feeling he can't reach. He doesn't hurt animals. He doesn't start fires. He has none of the signs. That's the sign. If this made you think, drop a comment. Subscribe for more. See you in the next one.